You have to know this. The fact that I'm here matters. The fact that you're there matters. This is no accident. None of us are.
If you do not have style, you just say, well, here I am, you know, as a human being. How can I express myself?
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
There is no way around it. You have to jump.
And we are calling it iPhone.
نريدها قومة ونهضة إسلامية.
I have a dream.
It's about yes we can.
من أمام منزل هوارد بيهار، الرجل الذي حول القهوة لسلطة، حيث انضم إلى ستاربكس واللي على مدار 21 عام تزعم بها هذه المؤسسة وحولها من مؤسسة محلية ب 28 فرع فقط في الولايات المتحدة إلى عشرات الآلاف من الأفرع حول العالم، 40 بلد حول العالم. ستاربكس ليست مجرد قهوة فعلا، فهي أسلوب حياة للبعض، هي ملاذ آمن للكثيرين، للطالب، للأصدقاء وحتى للأحباب. أصبحت أيامنا لا تخلو من الستاربكس، أصبحت علامة موضة للرجال والنساء، قصة نجاح تفاصيلها كثيرة، فدعونا نخوضها مع رجل الأعمال أو كما أحب أن أسميه الفيلسوف هوارد بيهار. Good morning, Mr. Bihar.
Good morning. How are you? Welcome.
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Lovely house.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us here.
Well, thanks for coming all this way. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was a very beautiful day. I'll tell you why. Because we started our day with a cup of coffee from Starbucks.
Oh, perfect.
And here we are with the person that changed coffee into a legend.
Yeah, well, it took a team of us to do it. It wasn't never just one person.
Sure. Thank you very much. So can we go into after you?
Grande Peppermint Mocha.
Thank you again, Mr. Howard. Thank you for giving us this chance. I know it has been a long journey, a long story, but let me start with the question that we were all thinking about since we came here. Starbucks became a lifestyle. It became even a religion, if I can say, or a legend, a brand that everyone looks up to. You helped having it something familiar for all people around the world. But you've joined the service sector since long time ago, from your early days, working with your father. So what can you tell us about those few lessons that you learned in your early days?
Well, I had a father that was an immigrant to the United States, and he came without a penny in his pocket and couldn't speak the language, and worked in a public market, a produce market in Seattle. And he saved his pennies and nickels and dimes and opened up a very small mom-and-pop grocery store in a neighborhood. And in those days, the grocers had charge accounts for all their customers, because their customers were not just customers, they were their neighbors, they were their friends.
Yes.
So one day I'm about 8 years old and I'm up by the front counter. My dad is ringing up a customer on the register and putting all the things in the bag, and he asked me to go get a couple of baskets of strawberries from the back. And so I went and got the baskets of strawberries and I brought them up, and my dad put them in the bag, and the customer left. And I was old enough to recognize that my dad hadn't rung them up on the register. And so I said to my dad, "Dad, you forgot to ring those up on the register." And my dad just looked at me and he said, "Howard, not everything we do in life do we get paid for. Some things we do just to serve other human beings." And I happen to know that these people can't afford to buy strawberries right now because the strawberries are very expensive. And so he said, it's my way of saying thank you and caring about them, because they're not just our customers, they're our neighbors and our friends. And that was my very first lesson on serving people. And I didn't realize it at the time, you know. It's funny how that story stuck with me, you know, and I remembered it as I got older. But that became the formation of what I believed in, that we're put on this earth to serve other people. And that's pretty much our only reason to do that, to be here, is to serve other people. So You know, and certainly the business I've been in, retail or food and beverage business, that's 100% of what it's about.
This is how you look at it,
Yeah.
because people, when they say coffee, they understand that it's only coffee.
Yeah.
But you look beyond that.
Yeah.
Your understanding of coffee is different, and it had a huge impact on the world. We want to know also more. When you joined Starbucks, it was a young company, only 26 or 28 branches. Why did you join Starbucks?
I was trying to escape corporate life. It was this tiny little coffee company, and I'd been a customer for 17 years. I was actually looking to buy my own business, and I met Howard Schultz, who was then the CEO and chairman of the board of this little tiny company, and we kind of built a relationship over time. It took a while, and I had this list of things that I wanted in my life in a business that I was going to be part of. I was going to be part of some kind of business. And it had a bunch of things on it. One, that everybody got to own a piece of the company. Everybody in the company was able to own a piece. That everybody would get to vote in their own area of expertise. And that's where I came up with this idea that the person who sweeps the floor should choose the broom. So I was talking to Howard, and here was my list, and we agreed on just about everything. And so, you know, I worked in the company for a week for free before I decided to join, and before he decided to give me an invitation to join. And so I could see whether it was the right place for me and whether it was the right place, I was the right person for him. End of that week, I knew it was the right place for me. So, you know, I joined. I turned right instead of turning left.
Oh, we know that you've been the president, but for you to say that, give a person his freedom, if you give a person responsibility, give him his freedom to take his own decisions, or to choose his own team. Where that understanding came from?
It came from my own desire. You know, most things that we do in life, they come from inside us somewhere. We don't always know what causes us. But I always needed to vote. I wanted people to value my opinion and to respect me. And so I just turned that around. I said, if I want it, other people want it. And so that became how I led, is that if I went out and I hired somebody to come into the organization, no matter what organization, I hired them for a reason, because I thought they could contribute. Well, if I present them with a rule book of the do's and don'ts, right, that doesn't get the most out of the people. But if I say to the people, look, here's who we are, here's our values, here's how we want to live our lives what's inside this organization, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and here we've hired you for a very specific job at this point in time. Here's what that job contributes to all of it. Now, you go ahead and figure out how to do it. We're here to help you. If you have a question, please ask. But, you know, that's what you do. If you want to get the most out of people, give them the opportunity to show what they can do. And if they make a mistake, so what?
You love changing rules and doing your own methods and your own philosophy. You even changed the 7 Ps. Can you just tell us your 7 Ps?
Well, it's a 6 Ps actually.
6 Ps.
6 Ps. So the first P is purpose. Everything you do in life has to have a purpose greater than yourself, and that's how I try to live. I don't want to do anything if I'm not doing something for somebody else. So purpose greater than me. The second one is passion. If you're going to do something bigger than yourself, then you darn well better be passionate about it. Scream it from the highest mountaintops. Tell everybody what you're doing, and scream it to yourself. You know, I'm passionate about this. I really care about this. The third P is persistence. You know, everything in life takes persistence, because, you know, there are rocks in the rivers that we're trying to go down. We don't know where all those rocks are. Sometimes we just hit a rock like that and it throws us back in our little boat, and we've got to figure out how to overcome that. Most of the rocks in the rivers that we go down are put there by us. We cause our most problems. So we have to be persistent. We have to get around that rock, through it, over it, or under it to accomplish the things that we want to go. Then the fourth P is patience. You know, you got to have patience in this world, because not everything comes at the same time that you want it to come. And, you know, we're always in a hurry. And I'm an A-type personality. I like to get things done. But what I've learned in life, and I learned it from my grandchildren, because they taught me that you got to have patience, because they hold you accountable like nobody else. They have no filters. You know, if you promise something to your grandchildren, they never forget. So you have to have patience with them, you know. And so I learned to have patience with myself, because that's the most important person I'd have patience with. And then the fifth P is performance. You know, we don't like that word very much.
Yes.
You know, we don't like to be evaluated by other people. We don't like to be judged by other people. But the fact of life, you know, we're always getting evaluated. Are you married?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that your significant other spouse is evaluating your performance? All the time, right? Our kids evaluate our performance. And so when we go to work in an organization, if we make a commitment to do something, then that's a commitment.
Correct.
Now, if we can't live up to it, then it's our job to make sure we tell somebody early that we can't live up to it. But performance matters. You got to get the job done. If you make a commitment to your wife or your children, you got to live up to it. And then the sixth P, the most important P, people. Everything we do in life has got to be about serving human beings, because that's all there is. Doesn't make any difference what you do. You're in the service of human beings. What are you trying to do with this show? You're trying to inform and educate people, you know, and along the way you help people have jobs that they like and fill their souls. But at the end of the day, all of you together here, this whole crew, is about helping people to have a better life by what they learn.
Sometimes people say good things, but you didn't only say them, you did them. When you say people, you made even a concept for Starbucks that whenever you buy a cup, you're giving a medical help or a medical support for someone else.
Yeah.
What is the theory? You're selling coffee. Why did you put all this importance for those simple details?
Because it's not just coffee. It's the same thing. Coffee is a vehicle that we use to help people have a better life. You come into a Starbucks store. Starbucks is not the cheapest place to buy a cup of coffee, right? You can go to buy a lot of less expensive cups of coffee. But at the end of the day, you know, when you come into that cup of coffee, we shouldn't be shoving a cup of coffee and say, see ya. You know, we're trying to help you have a better day in all little kinds of ways, you know. So it's the same thing when we use coffee to help other people. You know, we use profits from the company to serve communities around the world, and so we try to make coffee serve everybody, not just us, right? At least we're the least important in the equation. The people that we serve, those human beings we call customers, are the most important. The people that work in the stores are very important, and then the communities in which we live. If we're not taking part in those communities, then you know what good is it to sell anything? Then it truly is just a cup of coffee.
But also you thought about whom to employ. You talk about employing refugees, for example,
Sure.
as one of your things that you called. This is also something that I own a business, and I know how it's tough to focus on more into sales and numbers and how to pay. But you gave it more. You thought about many simple details. How is it related, Starbucks and refugees, for example?
You see, business is not business. Business is a direct reflection of the owners or the people that work in the business. So it's the first thing that you have to understand is who are you? What are your values? And how do those values turn into decisions and actions that you take? So the idea of hiring refugees in our stores was about our values. So there's no inherent conflict between making money or making a profit and living your values. As a matter of fact, there shouldn't be. You know, you should live your values. Now, if you know, and that's what we try to do at Starbucks. So we were about people. It's always been about people. So refugees were human beings that were struggling, particularly in the United States, well, around the world. And so we felt that we had a responsibility to help those people out. They're not the only people we hire. I mean, it's a small percentage, but we said we want to make a statement and we want to give people an opportunity to work when they're struggling to make a living and support their families. So it's about who we are, what our values are, and how we want to live our lives. And that fits within the business. And we make plenty of profit living our values.
بوجهة نظر هوارد بيهار هذا الكوب ليس هو سر نجاح ستاربكس، بل كيف يحولون بيع هذا الكوب إلى مفاهيم عظيمة، مثلا دعم مريض يحتاج الدعم الصحي، أو حتى وظيفة للاجئ يبحث عن لقمة العيش. كل هذه المفاهيم هي بوجهة نظره ما جعلت من هذا الكوب علامة تجارية عالمية. You're talking about values. Now, you've changed Starbucks. You've taken it from a local level to an international level. Is your personal values are the same as Starbucks values?
Yeah, not every, but a vast majority of my personal values are the same. So Starbucks says the first value of Starbucks is we treat each other with respect and dignity. So in mine is also about people. about trusting people, about caring and loving people. So that's part of my value system. Honesty is really important in my life. Well, it's the same thing, being authentic at Starbucks. They're different words. Yeah, they have to be aligned. You cannot work in a place and not have your values aligned, or you're going to go home every night miserable, no matter what it is. You know, if you go to work for a company that the leaders are dishonest and you're an honest person, how do you go home at night and look at yourself in the mirror? Impossible, and say, I'm okay. You can't. And on the other hand, if you're a dishonest person working in a company that is honest, how do you live within that? And that's the way that it is. See, businesses are just organizations. It's like a family. You're married, you have children, right? In that family, there are some, what I call the way we live, the values of the family. They're not always written down or always talked about real clearly. But there are these values that we all know in the family. And after a while, the children understand that being honest is really important, that caring for each other, that loving each other is really important. And so that becomes the unifying force of the family. That's exactly the same in a business. There's no difference.
Talking about organization, I felt this since we first did the research about you. When I came here in your house, you're really a very organized person. You always like to put things in points and in specific way of saying them. You even defined yourself in a piece of paper.
Yes.
This paper, the story of the paper that you hold with yourself wherever you go.
Yeah, it's when I was in my mid-20s, I went through a very difficult time where I had a boss that wanted me to be something other than I was, which put me in inherent conflict with my values and what I thought about myself. The problem was I had never written down those things. So when he was challenging me, I couldn't say to him, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? Because here's how I view myself. And he was a lot older than I was. He was one of those guys that never wanted to let the employee choose the broom. He would always tell you which broom to choose. He wasn't a bad human being. He just had a different view of the world. He was autocratic. And so I got severely depressed. I went from a guy that loved his job to a guy that hated his job, and I decided to quit. I didn't quit at that time, but so I decided to myself that I was going to write down who I was. And I made a document that started with my values, then it had my mission statement, and then it had my 6 Ps, and then I defined my values. So you could say I'm an honest person. I'd say that about myself, but I have to say what honesty means to me, because if I went around and talked to everybody on your team, are you honest? Are you honest? Everybody would say I'm honest, but we might all take honesty a little bit differently. We might tell a little white lie about something. So I wanted to know who I was, and it took me about a year to really write those things down and to sort through them. And I carry that, it's a picture of Howard in 50 words or less.
Wow.
And it keeps me in tune with myself. And it's amazing. I've had that document for over 40 years, and I still carry it with me no matter where I go. Because human beings are incredibly fragile. And sometimes, in the heat of the battle, sometimes we forget. And so I always want to remind myself of why I'm here, who I am as a person, what matters to me, and what my mission is in life.
I apologize, but trying to say that this paper is exactly like a photo. Our photos change. Now, when I wanted to come to the US, they requested from me a photo that the age of it is not more than 6 months, because the face changes within the years. How do you define yourself since the 20s till today with the same definition?
Well, I made changes in it over time. I took some words out and put some words in. My mission statement changed the most. When I was, the first time I wrote a mission statement, I was in the home furnishings business. And my mission statement was to be one of the great executives in the home furnishings industry. That was kind of my mission statement. But then over time, when I went to work for Starbucks, this was 25, 30 years ago, about 30 years ago, I wrote, my mission statement changed, and it goes like this. Every day, I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit. Every day I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then for others. And why I say self first is what I've learned after living for 73 years. If I'm not okay with me, right, if I don't know who I am, and if I'm not okay emotionally and physically, very difficult for me to serve another human being. And most things I do for other people are very small things. I have this little game I play with myself. Every day I have to pick up a piece of garbage off the street. Oh. And it's one of my ways of serving other human beings. And so, you know, things I do for other people. I teach classes, anything to serve, and that's how I try to live my life. But yeah, certainly things have changed. But the core things, the core elements don't change much. You know, when you're in your mid-20s, you know, your values are pretty well defined. You may not have thought about them. You may not have defined them, but the core of yourself, what your parents have taught you, lessons you've learned, yeah, some things will change. Your experiences will change you. If you have a very difficult time, some things will change you, but the core is pretty much the same.
When was the last thing that you changed in that piece of paper?
Well, the last thing I changed probably was one of my values. So I substituted caring and I put love in.
And what's the difference between caring and love?
Well, they kind of are similar, but I wanted to, you know, the people that I work with, I wanted to know them to know that I love them. Not in the same way that I love my wife, but in a way that said, I love you because you're a human being and I care about you as a human being. And I think businesses are afraid of using that word love. You know, we should use it a lot more because it's our love for humanity and our love for people that enables us to really do well at what we do. If it's only about you, I mean, you have to love yourself too, but if it's only about loving yourself, then how do you do anything really great in this world?
Don't you think that, talking about the same subject, that people nowadays are more caring about themselves more, especially whenever you go to a society where it's really improved and there is technology and there is this heavy lifestyle, speed, people are more independent. Now, for example, back home, it's an automatic thing that I get married, I still stay in my parents' house, but when we come here, I'm shy to say that I live in my parents' house. People are split. People leave they leave the houses. They live individually.
Not everywhere.
Not everywhere.
Look, not everywhere. Yeah, the country that I live in. Yeah, I mean, you know, our parents get sick now, and we send them off to a nursing home. It used to be though that we took care of our parents. You know, the children took care of their parents, and many, I would say, the majority of societies today in the world do that. You know, if you go to Asia, you go to Japan, you go to China, you know, you go to Vietnam, you see children helping and taking care of their parents. They may not always live together. That's a decision they make. But, you know, I think, you know, I worry about us. You know, that we kind of have lost track of what being a human being is all about. And that's why I'm so focused on it, and why we were so focused at Starbucks on it. Because it was about us being human beings first and business people somewhere down the road. Not, you know, it wasn't the first thing that we thought about. But I think you're right. You know, what's wrong with living with your parents? That's, you know, I mean, do you have children?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything better than your children growing up with their grandparents? I grew up with my grandmother. I only had one grandparent that was alive when I was born. And every week I was with my grandmother, you know, and it was a wonderful experience. I never forget it.
We have even a famous saying in Arabic, which is that no one is loved more than your son. It's only your grandson.
Yeah,
so it's
true.
Till you meet your grandson, he will break the record.
That's right. I have 6 grandchildren,
wow.
And let me tell you, it's exactly the truth. That's the way it is. So yeah, I think it's a problem. I think technology has become a problem. You know, everything in the world has
technology is a problem.
Yeah, it has its good side and its bad side, and trying to figure out where that is difficult. And try to make sure that we manage that. Look at the conflicts that are going on right now with the social media. You know, kids, I watch my grandkids. You know, if you let them, they would have their cell phone in front of them the whole time we were at dinner. They're not paying attention to, or not being part of a conversation. So we try not to do that. You know, but it's hurting us. And so we're going to have to figure out how to manage it because we can't let it go. I laugh when my grandkids would say, I have 1,000 friends on Facebook. I said, you don't have 1,000 friends. You maybe have 3 or 4 friends. The rest are just people that you might have traded an email with. Those are not friends.
Wow. Talking about Japan, Japan is a special country. It's where, as you said, family are stick together,
Yeah.
but still they're huge when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
And it's also by chance or by luck, I don't know, you need to tell me, in 1996 you opened your first Starbucks shop away from the United States. It was in Tokyo.
Right.
Do you remember that day?
I do. August 4th, 1996.
Oh.
And I went to the store that morning, and Howard Schultz went with me. We showed up about 9 o'clock in the morning. and it's in the Ginza district in Tokyo, and it's the big shopping district, and right across from one of the big department stores, Mitsukoshi. And we were standing across the street waiting for the first customer to come in so we could go across and congratulate him. 9 o'clock passes, 10 o'clock passes, nobody shows up. Finally, at 11 o'clock, 2 young men show up. They go into the store. I was so excited. Finally, customers. And I went across the street, and I went to shake their hands and to thank them. You know, and they had Asian faces, so I didn't know if they were Japanese or Chinese, whatever they were. And so in perfect English, they said, well, we're from Seattle. So our very first customers were from Seattle. And then by noon that day, there was a line around the block. Wow. And that started us in Japan. And now I think there's like 13 or 1,400 stores in Japan. But, you know, it was a big decision to go to Japan. Everybody said it wouldn't work. And, you know, we'd done our research, and I'd made a bunch of trips there, and we found a great partner in Japan for us, a company called Sazabi. And they were people as well. Wow. You know, you got to be careful the partners you choose in life. It's just like, you know, the partner you choose to be married. If you don't share common values, it's hard to make it work. But we shared common values, and they did a wonderful job. And they were great partners. But what an amazing experience.
Talking about, you said it, that from 9 to 10 to 11, no one came in.
Yeah.
What makes you feel that opening Starbucks, selling coffee in Tokyo would be successful?
I didn't know. I had no idea. I believed that it would work, you know, and we went with what we knew. You know, everybody says, well, you can't go with a paper cup because nobody will walk down the street. And it was true at the time. You'd hardly see anybody walking down the street drinking something out of a paper cup. They always were in a shop called a kisaten, right? And I said, we got to go with what we know. And so we did, and by 6 months after we opened, you'd go by the first few stores, and every young person was drinking a Starbucks out of a paper cup. Not only that, they'd have the logo facing forward, because Japan is a very fashion-conscious country. Yes. So, but we didn't know. You know, when you do things in life, you don't know that they're going to work.
هوارد بيهار ليس مجرد رجل أعمال ثري أو حقق نجاحاً، بل هو فيلسوف. حتى عندما سألناه عن تعريف ستاربكس أجاب بأنه ليس مجرد قهوة، إنما هو ملاذ آمن. Please don't make it that simple. Tell me what was the plan? What was the secret? How did you think that going to Japan, transferring this brand from a coffee to an unisex thing that everyone wears in their hands, what is it? What were you searching for?
Well, we'd done our work. It's not like we didn't do our work. We did all the research, and Japan was the 4th largest coffee consuming country in the world. Okay. People didn't understand that. They thought Japanese only drink tea, but they drank a lot of coffee. And there were coffee shops already in Japan. There were a number of them. So we saw it working. And, you know, our partner helped us and gave us a lot of confidence. But, I mean, I'm serious. You know, how do you know? When we first were opening across the United States, we left Seattle. We opened in Portland, Oregon. We didn't know, and it took a while. We went to Denver. It didn't work for a while in Denver, and we were nervous. We were nervous all the time. You know, there was this book written by the founder of Intel, Andy Grove, and it said, only the paranoid survive. You're looking at Mr. Paranoid himself right here. I was always paranoid about whether or not it would work or not. So, but we didn't know. Well, we knew that there was a great chance that it would work. And we had to start someplace. And, you know, what we knew about the Asia-Pacific region is that they were early adapters of American products, you know, versus Europe is not. You know, anything American, Europe, there's kind of always the immediate pushback. You know, what do the kids know? You know, but Asia was always more accepting, and so we just took our chance. And I decided on Japan first because it was the #1 economy in Asia at that time, and I figured if it's going to work anywhere, it's going to work there. And if it doesn't work there, then we know we don't have something that's going to transfer.
But it worked all over the world, in more than 40
Not at the beginning,
countries.
It didn't. It looks like it does. You know, everything in life, you know, you look at people that have done really well. I don't care whether it's a basketball player, you know, or a business person or an educator, and you look at them and you see all the articles in the newspaper how wonderful they are. They don't talk about, for the basketball player, the 20,000 hours of practice, all the mistakes that he or she made, right? In the world of business, it's all the mistakes. We almost didn't make it. Starbucks almost didn't make it in the early days. We were losing money. And when I came on board, we were losing money. And we had expanded to Chicago. That was the first city outside of Seattle. And we were losing money. And I had to figure out what to do to fix it. And so you don't know in life. You got to take, that's the idea of life, is taking chances. You do the best research you can, and then you work your rear end off to make it happen.
After reaching success, now everyone knows that Starbucks is successful in more than 40 countries in the world. What do you sell beside coffee and other food stuff? What does Starbucks sell for people, for consumer?
A place, a safe place that you can go. You could go into a Starbucks, not even buy a cup of coffee, and sit down in a chair, get your computer out, work on your computer. Nobody's going to say a thing to you. It's a place that you can go that's safe, and it's global. You've traveled all over the world. Any place there's a Starbucks, you get that same feeling. It's home, and it's comfortable, and that's the idea of it. And so I wrote a book called It's Not About the Coffee.
Yes.
And it's not about the coffee. It's about people and place. And the coffee is important. Coffee is our art. I mean, when we first started selling our coffee in the United States, they used to call us charbucks because it was so dark roasted. And everybody said it'll never sell. And we stayed with it, because drinking coffee in the United States was like drinking brown water at the time. And we just stayed with it and stayed with it and stayed with it. It's the way I would explain it. Have you ever had a really bad date? A date, the fruit date, the fruit, right?
The dates.
Okay, so I am a date lover, right? So, I never forget the first time I went to Kuwait and I had those big sweet dates. There was nothing like them. So that was our art. That was our coffee. That had to be good. But we were about place and about people. And that's what makes it work, period. It's really, that's all there is. Anybody can make our coffee. We don't own the patent on dark roasted coffee. We just do it.
Being in Japan, memorizing the day exactly to open your first shop. You want to congratulate to shake the hands of the person that buys your coffee for the first time in Japan. Being in Kuwait to open the first branch. What does those days make you feel? The first day to open in a new country.
I'll never forget Kuwait City, the first store we opened on the water. It was in that shopping center. I can't remember the name of it.
Yes.
And I walked in, and here sitting at a table were 3 women in full dress, right? And here were 3 Starbucks cups with straws going up underneath, and they were drinking whatever they were drinking, lattes or whatever they were drinking, cappuccino or whatever they were drinking, and they're drinking those, and they were talking as fast as anybody could talk. And I said, we got it, because that's exactly what happens everywhere you go in the world. And that's what I saw. If I went to Chicago, if I went to London, if I went to New York, that's what happens. And I said, that's it. And that made the difference. And so it gives you joy. It makes you proud. It validates the things that you believed in. Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous feeling of joy. I never feel like I've accomplished anything, because I'm always afraid. I'm paranoid. I never take for granted our success when I was there. I was there 21 years. I probably never slept a night, because always worried about, what have I missed? What should we be doing that we're not doing? But when you go to Kuwait and that first day, I've told that story a zillion times about these 3 women sitting at the table talking just like they could have been anywhere in the world. They could have been blondes in Finland. They could have been brunettes in England. Whatever,
Spending those 21 years, I met a person. His name is Mahathir Mohamad. He's the ex-prime minister of Malaysia. He changed his country from the third world to the first. He changed it from agricultural country to industrial country. 21 years is a time that things might change, and change in a very huge way. But you changed coffee into power. I understand when it's a politician. I don't understand but coffee. Was the secret about coffee? So if it wasn't coffee, it was another product, could you reach to what you've reached?
Well, coffee is unusual. You know, lots of people, there were so many people in the world that drank coffee. It wasn't that people weren't drinking coffee. And if you drink coffee, you drink coffee. It's not like you drink it once a year. You know, people that drink coffee drink it every day. So that, you know, that played a lot into it. You don't eat a hamburger every day for lunch. You don't eat pizza every day unless you want to look like me, you know. You know.
Or me.
You know, so, you know, and so we were, the product helped it. No question about it. It was a universal taste, and that was a big part. But other than that, I think the idea of living your life according to your values, running your business according to your values, works no matter where you are. I could go down the list of great companies. There's a company headquartered in, a few companies headquartered in Seattle, Costco, which is a big box retailer, membership retailer. And they operate just like we do. It's about the people. Now, they're selling toilet paper, soap, they sell paper towels, they sell batteries, they sell all sorts of things. Well, they're not selling coffee. It's not about where somebody goes and sits down like Starbucks is, but still they run it like we do. And I believe that it's led to their success. There's another company, a big department store chain in Seattle called Nordstrom. Been around forever. They're about serving people. They do exactly the same thing. So yes, if you're asking me what do I believe that if you run your company according to your values that are about serving human beings, you get the best chance of success, particularly over your competitors, the ones that are greedy and all they do is care about themselves.
The FMCG business is one of the most complicated businesses. And I wanted to ask you, because you turned it into success, but the food is so complicated. Before 150 years, lobster was fed to the prisoners, and it was food for the plants. No one ate lobster here in the U.S. Suddenly, it's an A-class food.
Yeah.
Did you rebranded coffee?
Well, I guess in a sense we did. We rebranded the taste. And
the value, it's expensive.
Yeah, it's not cheap. Yeah, certainly, but that's not what we wanted to be. Our goal wasn't to be cheap, it was to be good. And so that we stayed with it. We wanted to be unique. And people always tell us all the time, you got to have a light roast. You're in America, you can't do this, that people won't take it. But we had the patience to stay with it. And so, you know, it's like dates. You know, if you only eat cheap dates, right, that's all you're ever used to. But once you eat a really great date, it's hard to go back. And I live in a valley that grows dates, right? Yes. And there's nothing like it. And so we just converted people to drinking great coffee. And now people, this is what they drink. We didn't create it. You know, and a man named Alfred Peet, who started a company called Peet's Coffee in the Bay Area, he was from Belgium. And Belgium has dark roasted coffee. And so, you know, we don't own this. We just borrowed it. I would say what we owned, what we really focused on, which I keep repeating over and over again, are people and values. And that's what drove us. And now anybody can do that, but people don't do it. Look at companies like Uber, the guy that was running Uber, right? His values were not good. And it cost him his company, you know? And there Tyco, an old company in the U.S. that didn't value its, you know, it said things, but it didn't value its values. You know, it didn't live by its values, and on and on and on and on. And having good values and taking care of people is no guarantee of success. What it is a guarantee of that you're going to have a productive life and a good life, because you'll live according to who you are.
Reminding me of our mission or our message in this program, how we should believe and stick to our values. The name of the program is Power Owners.
Yeah.
How do you define power in any person? How can I find my power?
Your power comes from serving others. It comes from being of service to other human beings. It doesn't come from them serving you. It's always the biggest argument that I'll have with many leaders. They'll say, well, wait a minute, these people are here to serve the shareholders and serve the company. I said, that's not the way you need to think about it. Okay, the job of leaders is to serve people in their organizations, helping their people accomplish their own goals in the journey of accomplishing the organization's goals. It's a two-way street. But in order to get people to help you accomplish the goals of your organization, you have to serve them first. And that's what power is about, right? I mean, you know, all the great religious leaders of the world, every single one, from Muhammad to Jesus to Moses to Buddha to whoever, all said exactly the same thing, that we're here to serve others, not be served by others. So you'd think after 4,000 years, right, or 5,000 years, we'd learn that lesson. We just struggle with learning that lesson. But it is a truth about humanity. Serve others before you get served.
Thank you. I came to the point where many things changed, I think. Yes, you changed the world through Starbucks, but it was something personal. After 21 years, you left Starbucks. Do you remember that day too?
I do. I do. I went home that night, the day I retired. Now, I was still on the board, but I left day-to-day operations of Starbucks. And I came home that night, and I sat down in my chair, my big chair in my home. My wife brought me a drink, and I was talking to her, and all of a sudden, my heart started to flutter. You know? And it came from the anxiety of that huge change, of leaving something that I valued so much and knowing that I had to let go that night. And, you know, it took me a long time to get over that. It took me a couple of years to really let go. I went through bits of sadness, of anger, all sorts of emotions, until finally one day I was here in this house, and I was reading a book, and I was laying on the sofa, and I was kind of depressed over it all still. And these words came into my head. I don't know where they came from, but the words said, Howard, your life's work is still your life's work. Your life's work is still your life's work. And I saw my life's work as nurturing and inspiring the human spirit of other people. And I just had let go. I'd forgotten that was my life's work. And from that day forward, everything changed for me again. And I got back into my life and got going again, doing the things that I wanted to do, that I thought had added value to the world. It wasn't anymore getting up in the morning and going to work at Starbucks. You know, I was all over the world. I wrote a couple of books. I was speaking to people. I was mentoring students and business leaders about the value of serving others. And that's been my life's work. So, but I remember that first day. Oh, it was, boy, was it tough. And it lasted for quite a while. It took me a while to get over it.
When you explained the 21 years, you said that you never slept well. Yeah. You were successful. You changed the world. You changed many concepts. You changed people's lifestyle. After 21 years, you were depressed because you left that job, that tiredness. People in my country, they fight on reducing the age of work. They want to leave their jobs as soon as possible. Yeah. What do you tell them?
As long as you love what you're doing and you're feeling like you're contributing, then, you know, stay with it. You know, you don't need to leave. I left. I'll tell you why I retired. My wife was getting her PhD in social work, and I'd made a commitment to her that when she finished her PhD, I would take a year or two off and we would travel. I'd traveled a lot on business, but we would spend time together. So I thought it was going to take her 8 or 9 years. And she finished her PhD in less than 4 years, her dissertation and everything. I'd made a commitment. So I went to Howard Schultz and I said, you know, I made this commitment, so I need to go and I need to live up to that commitment. And so it was hard, but I'd made that commitment to my wife, and so I said a deal is a deal. Performance counts, right? And so I left, and I stayed on the board after that.
Yes.
And then a year later, I came back. I got this call in the morning that the president of North America had resigned, and they said, can you come and help? And I was sitting in my kitchen having my cup of Starbucks in my pajamas with my wife, right? She was in her bathrobe. And I said, sure, I'll do it. And my wife looked at me, she said, what did you agree to? I said, I'm just going back for a few months to help. Well, that turned into 2 years. And then I finally retired for good.
And when you say the word retiring,
yeah.
What does it mean exactly?
It just means changing your focus for me. It didn't mean that I was going to stop doing things. I've been on a number of public boards. I was on the board of the Gap, Sugar Storage, Starbucks, and a number of small boards, and a number of venture capital boards, a number of nonprofit boards. So it's not about not doing things. I need to be productive. I don't want to just be busy. I want to do something for human beings. I want to do something for the world in which I live. And so I continue to do that. And I don't ever plan, until they put that last nail in the coffin, I hope I'm still doing something.
In our second season, the first interview was, or our first stop was with Steve Forbes.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about being rich and how was the lifestyle of being rich. So that influenced all of our guests, and I always repeat this question. What do you think the definition of being rich?
What's the definition of being rich? Well, I think there's a lot of things. Being able to do things for other people, you know, with excess money that you have, being able to do things for your kids, that's, to me, is rich. You know, I didn't join Starbucks to get rich. I was broke, basically, when I joined Starbucks. I invested all the money I'd saved into another company that didn't make it. And I went there and I said, if I can save enough money to put my kids through college, that will be plenty. I didn't grow up in a family that had anything. My dad never had anything. The most he ever earned was $18,000 a year. But we always had food on the table. So that's, to me, as rich as food on the table, a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and the ability to help other people. That's rich.
I remember leaving after having the interview with Chad Hurley, who also changed the world by building YouTube. And we had a conversation with the team members. They all agreed that there is a difference between a dream and a goal, which is a plan.
Yes.
But still, they said, is all dreams can be reality? How to choose a dream?
How to choose a dream? Well, it should be something that fills your soul, that you know, see, a dream should be in Technicolor, not black and white. You got to see it in your head, right, in your brain, of what it looks like for that dream to come true. And the clearer you can make it, the better chance you have of attaining that dream. And then, like I said, you know... So
is that a redefinition of plan?
Well, yeah, well, plans come, plans go. Dreams are forever until you let go of them. You know, even if you don't achieve the dream can still be there. Matter of fact, you know, the dream should be so big that you never achieve it. It should be so huge that you never get there because it keeps pulling you towards it. You know, I have a dream to help 1,000 students in the United States, undocumented students. You know what undocumented is? Kids that aren't citizens in the United States, go to college. Now, that's 1,000 for me is a lot. It's a lot of money, but most it's a lot of time and effort to do it. And I hope that I live long enough to do that. But I'm going to keep going. If I get to 500 or 700 or I get to 4, it doesn't make any difference. That's the dream. Now, every year my plan changes.
And
getting towards that.
Can I ask you here, how many did you achieve till now?
Well, we're going to have 12 so far. Yeah, 12.
Great.
Yeah. So, you know, dreams are what keep me going.
And for me to ask also another realistic question, which is having a plan is important. I remember my father told me when I wanted to start the business, where is your SWOT analysis? Where is your business plan?
Yeah.
But whenever we meet successful people, whatever they had in their plan or expectation never happened.
Never.
Maybe it happened in a better way, but it never happens.
Never.
So what's the importance of that plan?
Because it's like a roadmap. So I want to go from here to Dallas, Texas. Okay, there's probably 50 ways to get from here to Dallas, Texas. So I take and I get a map and I draw a line that I think I'm going to take to Dallas, Texas. I get 50 miles out of town and there's been a huge accident. And the state patrol says, it's going to be 3 days before we clear this up. It's so bad. Oil is spilled everywhere and there's all sorts of things. You know, and so now you got to look at that map and you got to, maybe, by the way, you got to go back. Everybody thinks that you got to just keep going forward. No, sometimes you got to go back. You know, when you go to put a nail in a board, the hammer, you take the hammer and you pound the nail, right? And the nail goes in. In order to get that nail in, the hammer has to go back. But it's the same in life. So I got to go back and I got to retrace, okay, I've got to go around this accident, get another way. So then I get another 300 miles, right? And I get a flat tire. And I'm in a little tiny town somewhere in Podunk nowhere, right? And it's going to take me 3 days to get the flat tire fixed. And so I got to stay in this little tiny hotel, and the only place to eat is a little cafe, you know, because there's no Starbucks, you know. And so it's constantly changing, you know, and so plans constantly changing. And that's why it takes persistence. When your plan changes, when the rock comes up in your river, you got to know how to step back, to go around, to go under, to go through, over, or blow it up, whatever it happens to be.
Because I'm here with a great philosopher, let me ask you something away from Starbucks.
Okay.
But it's a question that I always thought about. When we're part of an educational path, there is always a grade by the end of the year. So it's an A or a B or a C. Yeah. But we stop grading ourselves when we graduate from college or from university. So how do you grade a year in the real life?
How do I grade myself?
In a year.
Okay, in a year. So I have goals. I have a 1, 3, and 5 year plan. Still at 73. And the goals are across all the pieces of my life. Spiritual peace, family, my marriage, travel, personal growth. Well, there's about 8 or 9 things. I don't even remember them all. And under those, I write out goals for myself. And then my wife does the same thing, and we get together, and we have what we call the Bihar Family Retreat. And we come together, and we present to each other our own personal goals. And we've been doing this for 40 years, since we got married. We've been married 40 years. And there's some negotiation that goes on. When she wanted to get her PhD in social work, she stopped earning any money. So those were the early days at Starbucks. So I was going to be the sole breadwinner, so we had to figure out a way to do it, but we did. But we had our own goals. And so, you know, I have lived my life like that. I used to be only dreams. But, you know, you have to do what your dad said. You have to create a roadmap. And the roadmap doesn't work. Do I accomplish every goal? No, I don't. And a lot of things that I had on my goal list, I had material things on my goal list. I wanted a Ferrari. When I was young, I always wanted this Ferrari. I thought that's going to be the best thing ever, right? And by the time I was able to afford a Ferrari, I went and drove one, and it drove like a truck. And I said, I don't want that Ferrari anymore. So it came off the list. So sometimes you can have goals that you really don't want. You think you do, but you don't. And so you change them. But it directs my life.
But what I really meant also in the question is that the teacher grades your year.
Oh, yeah, right.
Who grades my year?
Me.
Me.
You have to grade yourself. And you don't do it once a year, you do it every night. You go, and before you go to bed every night, you go look in the mirror and you say, how did I do today? And the how did I do today is not about the things you got, but did you live up to your values? Right? Did you live up to your mission statement? Because that's the only way to really judge yourself. Everything else is baloney. It's how did you live your life? If you said you were an honest person, did you tell a lie today to avoid something? If you said you're an authentic person, were you real? Did you say to you the things that you believe in? Everything I say is, you know, not fact, but it's the things that I believe in. So was I honest with you? Was I authentic with you? Did I love other people, or was I in judgment of other people? You know, who was I today? And we're not perfect human beings. So there's plenty of days when I look myself in the mirror and I say, Howard, you didn't make it today, but there's tomorrow. And it's constantly moving yourself towards that. And so yes, you have to evaluate yourself.
This is exactly what our Prophet Muhammad said. He said that live every day like it's your last.
Yeah.
And also live the every day as you'll never die. So it's always the balance between them both. You talk like similar to religion. So I want to know more about your private life, if you don't mind. And that would be one of our last questions. Yeah. I know that you never missed a day without drinking a Starbucks. Ever. But what else? What is a must in every and each day?
Well, a must in every day is evaluating myself. I have to do that. And I read my picture of Howard every day. I look at it every day because I don't want to take any chance of forgetting. You know, a must is I say I love you to my wife. That's a must. Not from the other end of the house, but at her this close. Honey, I love you. And, you know, those are the musts in my life. There's very simple musts. You know, I think about my spirituality, who I am as a person, but the things that matter, you know, pretty much are looking at my Howard in 50 words or less and making sure and asking that question, how did I do today? And picking up a piece of paper every day.
But when someone gives you an opinion about yourself,
yeah.
or for example, a teacher comes and say that grades you on let's say an A or a B, it's a must you respect whatever he say. But what makes others' opinions important to you on yourself, on your achievements,
on
or
me?
on your?
Well, you know, there's nothing like. I think that what matters most to me is that somebody is authentic and honest with me. The things that I expect from myself, I want others to be with me. So let's say that I said something that offended you. The best thing that could happen to me is if you said to me, Howard, what you just said offended me and here's why. That would be, I would internalize that, right? I'm not very good when somebody swears at me or yells at me, you know, or tries to beat me up. It doesn't work with me. You ask my wife. If she yells at me, it doesn't work with me. But if she comes to me and says, Howard, you know, I was really disappointed in something that you did. You know, I just fall apart. I just want to change. And it's with my kids, they're the same way, or with my grandkids, is living up to expectations of myself and others. And those things matter. And, you know, look, all of us want to be loved. All of us want to be treated with respect and dignity. All of us want to grow as human beings. All of us want to learn. And those things matter to me. And learning comes not just from books that I read, but from other people. Most of it comes from other people. Sometimes just from observing. Sometimes from what they say. Just the questions you're asking me today. I am learning a lot. You know, because you're forcing me to think about things that, you know, I haven't talked about with anybody else. And I like that. And it makes me feel better about myself, and it also makes me ask questions about myself.
Because we love what you achieved, and because we loved what you shared just now, and how you changed the world, we have a gift to give you. But before that, let me ask you again the last question about love. There is always a famous question related to love, which is after knowing that a person loves someone, they tell them why. Why do you love me? Yeah. So why do you love Starbucks?
I love Starbucks because of what it represents. That I had been a customer for 17 years before I went to work there. So I've been drinking the coffee a long time. And I do really like the coffee. I don't love the coffee, because you don't love things, you love human beings. And so I love the people of Starbucks. And that's what it represents to me, is the people. That's all there is. I remember one day, the first time we ever had an all-company meeting. It was in Seattle in a big arena, and 7,000 people from all over the world showed up. And Howard Schultz and I were down in the front of the arena, and both of us looked up into the seating of all the people there, and almost simultaneously we asked the same question. How did all this happen? How did it happen? You know, and the truth of the matter is it wasn't us. What we did was serve our people better than any other leaders served their people. And it was the people that made it happen. And so you asked me what I'm most proud of and what I love, it's the people of Starbucks, and I still love them today. I'm in a store every single day, and I've been retired for 10 years.
Wow. Then we came to the end, and this is a way of saying that we love what you achieved. This is, of course, you've been in Kuwait,
yes.
So you know exactly what it is.
I do.
This is a present that reflects our identity.
Yeah.
It's a boat. We travel all over the world to know, to meet people like you that changed the world and gave a huge story and huge tips. So thank you.
It's how Starbucks was named, right? It came from, the siren came from the sailing ships that took coffee all over the world, you know, and so the siren was on the front of the ship, and so it's like Starbucks. Yeah, that's where it came. So is it full of dates? Where are the dates? No, just joking. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
It was very good. Great questions. The best I've ever had.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, very good. Thanks.
يقول عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه: حاسبوا أنفسكم قبل أن تحاسبوا، وزنوا أعمالكم قبل أن توزن، هذه فلسفة حياة ضيفنا الذي حول القهوة لسلطة اكتسح بها العالم. يعرف نفسه بقطعة ورقة تزن 50 كلمة فقط، يضع بها أهدافه، مبادئه وأحلامه، ويقول أن سبيل للنجاح أيا كانت من خلال القهوة أو غيرها هي بقطعة ورقة تضعها على نفسك التزاما بكلمات تعرف بها ذاتك، أهدافك، مبادئك، وعندما تلتزم بها تجد نفسك ناجحا.